Hey all, this is Travis. We are continuing to learn about DeFi or decentralized finance. In the last video, I talked about liquidity mining programs. This is adding additional incentives for users to provide liquidity onto the platform. And now in this video, we're going to talk about staking and yield farming, which are central to decentralized finance and earning yield. Let's get into it. Today, we're going to be looking at Curve Finance. This is another decentralized exchange on Ethereum, similar to Uniswap, except it excels at the use case of swapping stable coins for one another, or they call them like pairs, coins that their prices move relative to each other. And this just improves the user experience in certain ways that I won't get into. Something called impermanent loss is something that plagues the liquidity provider. If you're interested, get more into it on your own. But just understand for now that this is a platform that really excels at swapping stablecoins for one another. We talked about DAI in the second video. This is the stablecoin generated in MakerDAO vaults. And you can swap with other stablecoins like USDC, USDT, TUSD, BUSD, whatever. Okay, so let's get on to staking and why DeFi protocols utilize this. So we talked about liquidity mining is the idea that the DeFi protocol gives you extra token rewards to incentivize your liquidity to come in the first place. But how do you get this liquidity to stay? For example, if I'm a liquidity provider on Uniswap, let's say Curve, I put in my tokens into the liquidity pool and I get the LP token in return. And this gives me access to the trading fees that are being generated in that or by that liquidity pool. Now, what is going to make it to where I don't take my liquidity back and then put it into some other platform like Uniswap, some other DEX that maybe offers another liquidity mining program? Well, what Curve wants you to do is basically deposit your tokens into the liquidity pool and then stake your LP tokens in what they call a gauge pool. Now, I don't want to get into the details here, but just understand that when you deposit the LP tokens in the gauge pool, you start earning CRV reward. This CRV is the governance token. It's the native token to Curve. And so as long as your liquidity LP tokens are staked in this pool, you're receiving CRV reward, but you cannot take your liquidity out of the Curve liquidity pool. So I guess it's another type of liquidity mining strategy that ensures that users or incentivizes users to stake their liquid LP tokens and to not move their liquidity off the Curve protocol. So this extra CRV reward it's additional yield for liquidity providers. So if we go back to the beginning here, we see that the API for the Try Crypto 2 pool is 1.22%. So this is, if I'm just an LP token holder, then I can expect 1.22% on the liquidity that I provided. This is generated from the trading fees that we talked about in the first video with Uniswap. But then you can also see there's additional reward down here, 2.29% to 5.72% in CRV, right? So if I deposit $100 worth of liquidity in this pool, I'd expect 1.22% paid from the trading fees. And then also, I'd expect $1.22 paid in trading fees to me at the end of the year, but then also 2.29 to $5.72 paid in CRV token to me by the end of the year as well. So this is how Curve boosts rewards. Now, Curve is even more complex, and we get into, so we just staked our LP tokens in a gauge pool to earn CRV. Now, Curve also gives us the option to stake CRV in order to to get VCRV in return. Now this starts to get really confusing and mind-boggling here, but what VCRV does is it boosts our CRV reward. So let's say I stake my CRV, I earn VCRV in return, and this VCRV boosts the CRV reward that I'm getting in the Try Crypto 2 pool. And this is why it's a range from 2.29% to 5.72%, because depending on how much VCRV I hold in my wallet, depends on how much of a boost in CRV I get. And so the maximum boost is 2.5x. So if I max out my VCRV, then I get up to 5.72% paid in CRV. And this is how an additional staking layer boosts a user's return. So that is an explanation of staking, and I hope you can start to see how users might stack these different activities on top of each other to maximize their rewards. So just in the case of Curve, you have people depositing their crypto tokens into Curve liquidity pools. They receive their LP token and they start earning the trading fees from that liquidity pool that is generated from that liquidity pool. Now they can stake those LP tokens into a Curve gauge pool and start earning CRV reward in return. So they go from earning 1.22% to also earning 2.29% in addition to that. Now they can stake their CRV, or they can lock it, same thing, lock or stake, to earn VCRV, which boosts their CRV reward up to 5.72%. And I'm illustrating this, I'm talking through it in painstaking detail, because this is an example of something called yield farming, which is really central to decentralized finance. Yield farming is basically stacking these different yield activities on top of each other to maximize your rewards. But yield farming, I don't know about you, but this has all been kind of complex, right? Like, this is a lot for a beginning person to wrap their head around. I know when I was doing the research for this video, it took me a really long time just to understand the different levels just within Curve. So yield farming, in the way that I've described it here, is pretty manual, right? You have to understand these different layers of yield, and you have to do multiple staking operations. I'm coming back into Compound because I want to show something as well. So I've earned 0.0056 comp token, right, by being a supplier in the Compound pool. But you see here that I have to, this comp token isn't automatically deposited into my wallet. I have to manually come in and claim the comp token over incremental periods, right? And so I have to send a transaction to the blockchain. This costs me gas, and this is called harvesting the yield, right? So I have to, over time, harvest the yield. Yeah, it's just a manual process, and this yield harvesting will add up the network fees that I have to do, right? Because if I want to, I'm going to have to claim the CRV that I am earning by staking my LP tokens in the gauge pool. I have to do that periodically as it accrues, and then continue to put in more VCRV to continue to boost my rewards. So this is a manual process. The network fees are going to add up. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about something called yield aggregators, which essentially automate this yield farming process for the user and implement different yield farming strategies in an automated way. It's kind of like a fund manager, like through a traditional financial broker like Fidelity, who is depositing your cash into mutual funds, ETFs, bond funds, and all that. Except now here, yield aggregators use software to automate yield farming strategies. Very interesting. We'll get into it in the next video. Thank you all.